Episode 6 of A Teacher. As Claire's world begins to crumble, an uncertain Eric is pressed to reveal intimate details of his relationship. Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. I am back again, breaking down, reviewing, and recapping the latest episode of FX on Hulu, A Teacher. We're talking episode 6, where we see the details of Eric's and Claire's relationship is out in the public now. We also see that it looks like Eric and Claire are no longer on the same page. We're going to break it all down in this spoiler review before we dive into the details. As you can see on the screen now, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date on what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell. That way you all don't miss any of my other teacher reviews, other TV coverage, movie reviews, live streams, all the fun things we do on this channel. It would mean a lot to me if you all can share this video and give it a thumbs up. Helps out the channel, but also really appreciate it. And in the comments, let's discuss episode 6. Where do you think things will go with the relationship between Claire and Eric, with him going back home to his mom, kind of breaking down in front of her? And then what do we think will happen to Claire in regards to her essentially turning herself in? Let's discuss everything in the comments. So before I get into this breakdown, this review, and the recap, I want to thank you all for tuning in every single week to these reviews. We all know this is a very uncomfortable show, which is the intention of this show, is to make you feel uncomfortable, and they've definitely done so in these last 6 episodes. But again, reading the comments, interacting with you all have been phenomenal. Again, it's a very uncomfortable show, but the conversations we have in the comments, whether right or wrong, just having a discussion, I think a healthy discussion about this subject matter, and I just want to thank you all for tuning in every single week, and let's continue that conversation again in the comments below. So just overall thoughts before I get into this kind of recap here. I thought this was another solid episode. I think the performances again have been top notch. To see this kind of switch in this dynamic of Claire, man, I think it's really safe to say, and we've been talking about it for the last 6 weeks, right, where there's definitely something's loose, something's going on mentally with her, whether it's the relationship she had with her dad and not really being there for her, losing her mom at the age of 9, I believe, and not having this kind of childhood that she thought she might have wanted had with her mother being gone, not having a boyfriend up until college, being a virgin up until college. So there's definitely some void that Claire has in her life to get her in this relationship with, Eric. And we'll kind of discuss Eric in this review too, but I thought that this is, the way the show is kind of handling the subject matter has been really intriguing, because we've talked about it in the comments, right, where if the roles were reversed and this is a man sleeping with a 17-year-old girl, the perception, at least I can just speak for myself, the perception of the man sleeping with a young girl, they're a monster, they need to get locked up for the life of, for the rest of their life. But with Claire, what I think the show has been doing really well is, and I've been reading a lot of you all's great comments, there's a little bit of sympathy for Claire, right? And I think that goes into the performance. I think that goes into the writing, but also just the way that this relationship has kind of been structured thus far. So again, I think this show is doing a really good job of really diving into the minutia of how someone can get into the relationship like this, and also kind of the breaking down the layers of the characteristics, and also just seeing the dynamic between Claire, how she views relationship, how Eric now views this. I think this show is just really fascinating. So overall, really solid episode, and we'll talk about it again at the end of this review. But let's get into this recap as we kick off the episode. We see Claire just saying out loud that she's having an affair. She's having an affair. She's saying it over and over again. So eventually Matt kind of wakes up and hears the news. And then she tells Matt that not only is she having an affair, but it's with her student. And, we mentioned it last week. And this is like last week's scene when Claire was telling her teacher friend that she's having an affair. Just that tense of uncomfortableness. Again, the show is doing a really good job. At least for me, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Just having her say those words out loud to Matt just really made me on the edge of my seat. Like, oh, this is just the way she said it. Again, the performances is just so great. But hearing her say that out loud was just really, like I said, kind of a shocking moment for me, and him just kind of being shocked as well, hearing the news. And I think it's safe to say, as we'll talk about her friend later on, that she did report her. And that was something that, after I watched the episode last week, I'm like, well, maybe she'll be sympathetic to the situation. Maybe she's had some type of relationship with the student, not to this extent, but kind of maybe can understand Claire, but no, I think it's safe to say, as we find out later in the episode, that she did report her, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But as we kind of transition, we cut to Eric looking through his phone, and the doorbell rings, and there's two people wanting to question him about the relationship that he had with Claire. So we see this kind of conversation play out as they question him about Claire. The questions become a little bit more personal. Tell us a little bit about, have you guys met outside of school? What's the relationship like? And we see Eric's mom kind of saying like, what's going on? Is she okay? And obviously she's kind of confused about the situation. And this is where things kind of really get uncomfortable for Eric, as we see him kind of get tensed up in this moment as they find out that they say that, we did kind of hang out outside of school. She was my tutorer. We met at my job, this, that, and the other. And then the cops just flat out say, look, Eric, we know the situation. It's been reported. We know everything. So it'll be better for you if you could just tell us the truth, but also be better for Claire. Again, them knowing that there's this type of relationship that he probably, when they say we're going to help Claire, he's thinking that he's helping her out by telling the truth. So we see, the scene kind of cuts, but we assume that he tells them everything, as we see in the next scene he calls Claire. But it's within that moment, right? Just kind of going back to getting you guys' comments. Just looking at the performance by Nick Robertson, you see him kind of tension up, kind of clenching up to himself, getting very uncomfortable about the situation. Again, he's recently turned 18, but he's still a kid, right? He just turned 18. So him just kind of covering up for his girlfriend, lover, and him knowing that their world or their walls are starting to cave in, and that this kind of relationship, this La La Land, this kind of fantasy relationship is coming. It's going to be running its course pretty soon. So let me know what you all thought about the performance in that scene with Nick, and also them confirming that it's been reported. So yes, Catherine did tell the authorities of what's going on. So let's discuss that in the comments below. We kind of move forward. We see Matt telling Nate the news, and little side note here, again, we see Matt crying. I said this in my first review. It is almost uncanny, at least to me. He looks so much like Jake Gyllenhaal. It's like insane. But nonetheless, we kind of see in this scene that he tells Nate the news, and we see Nate's reaction. And this kind of speaks to, again, their relationship. Nate, being Claire's sister, and Claire and the way they were raised, he was to her defense. Again, you would kind of expect that for a big brother, but as a police officer, you would think that maybe the reaction would be slightly different, but we see that he's coming to her defense, saying first, before he finds out that it's a student that she slept with, he's like, well, Claire's upbringing is a little bit different, so that's excuse number one. Once Matt tells him, well, Claire told me she was having an affair, and she also told me that it was a student, we automatically see Nate. He already has an answer for it, right? He's just like, well, if he doesn't, say that this is all false and this consent, that no charges will be dropped. So he's already like on the defense, like, okay, how can I get my sister out of the situation? We saw Nate earlier in this season, come to the defense of Eric when he was caught, drinking underage, and how he stood up for his sister. So it'll be really interesting to see, as we'll talk about, him a little bit later in regards to calling Claire and saying, you need to come back home. You're going to make matters worse. It'll be really interesting to see if Nate's going to somehow find his way into this situation and try to maybe get his sister out of this bind once we see that she turns herself in at the end. But again, it's really interesting, again, going to see into their relationship. When the dad wasn't there for Claire, that void from not having a mother, how was that dynamic when they were kids growing up? I'm really intrigued to see if they kind of really explore the background of Claire, especially if she goes into like some therapy session and we kind of break down the layers of how she was raised. But nonetheless, like I said, we know that there is something off with Claire, whether it be the first episode, her stealing that lipstick. Someone mentioned in the comments last week, could it be that Claire has maybe had an affair with a student before, and that's maybe why they went to this new school? I was always under the assumption that they probably moved because Matt had this new job opportunity to be a doctor at a hospital, but who knows? Maybe she had to leave because things got a little bit rowdy, or things kind of speculation started to happen, so she had to move away from that town before her husband found out. So that will be interesting to see. Maybe that's why she turned herself in, because she felt bad. Like, this isn't the first time this happened. So there's definitely some more to learn about Claire in regards to her history, and in regards to these kind of risky decisions of stealing things, sleeping with younger students, and things of that nature. So there's definitely something to keep an eye out for sure. We next see Eric calling Claire, saying that he needs to see her, that he, they need to have a conversation. The cops come over. He didn't know what to say. He just told them, he thought that everything was out and about, so he just felt like it was more comfortable to tell them the truth. We see him apologize to her, and she hangs up on Eric, and we see kind of Eric crying again. their world is crumbling apart. They're both crying at this point because they don't know what's going to come for them. So we see that Eric's friend Logan learns of the news from his mother, which he kind of like laughs it off at first. Like, I can't believe this. Yeah, I knew he was sleeping with an older college girl, but not his teacher. And we'll talk about his friends and kind of how they confronted Eric about the situation. As we kind of see in the next scene, back to Claire laying in bed. And this was very interesting to me, and I would love to know you guys' thoughts in the comments on this. But we see Matt tell her that, he wants to make this work, right? So in the comments, again, this is a safe space. Let's just have a conversation about it. If you were in Matt's shoes, would you want to continue this relationship? Would you want to be there for your partner? Would you want this relationship to continue on? Me personally, I wouldn't. I would just, cut ties. I know he talks about this has been a 10-year relationship, this, that, and the third, but 10 years and the way, not only that was it an affair, which obviously is a blow to their relationship, but the fact that it's a student of hers, just to me, I'm just like, I'll have to check myself out of that relationship. But again, let me know what you guys would have done if you were in Matt's position. Would you want to continue this 10-year relationship? Would you want to, kind of amend this mistake from your wife or your husband, whatever the case may be, your significant other? Let's talk about it in the comments. But we see him say that, that he doesn't want to lose her. They've been together for 10 years. He's gotten a lawyer. He's gotten her a therapist and all this stuff. So I'm just like, man, Jake Gyllenhaal, Jake Jr. is really trying to make things work. But we'll see if he'll want to continue to make things work after Claire does what she does here in a bit. So before we even get to that moment, we see Josh and Logan talking to Eric about the situation, saying that, well, Josh not really saying this, but Logan saying, man, you're going to be a legend. Again, this goes back to a couple episodes ago of Eric trying to live up to this idea of him sleeping with his teacher and him saying that he's the man. So now the roles are kind of reversed, and he's like, no, don't say that, man. This is much bigger than just an ego trip. This is someone's life's at stake, right? My life, number one. I don't want to be looked at as the kid that kind of ruined someone's relationship. And then the reverse, he does have feelings for Claire, and he knows that her career will no longer be. She will no longer be a teacher. So it's really kind of interesting to see that kind of role reversal in the sense of how he perceived this relationship a couple episodes ago, but now he sees the consequences of his actions. So we see Logan bringing up a good point that we've been talking about in the comments. Yeah, he's 17, 18, consent, all that stuff, but it's still wrong. He even says there's something wrong with Claire, right? That there is something, it's her fault. She was the adult in the situation. That's something we've been talking about for a while, and that she has issues for the fact that she was sleeping with him. So even Logan kind of addresses that. And we know Logan is kind of a wild card in himself. And I wonder if the whole relationship between Logan and Josh's sister is going to come back again, if that's something that we can probably just forget about because we're just going to focus on Claire and everything that she did at the end of this episode, or if we'll see Josh's sister kind of get back in the mix of their relationship, being that he's an older senior talking to this freshman. But nonetheless, we move forward. We see Matt and Claire having dinner. He's telling her that he's taking time off of work and he's going to be there for this, that, and the other. And she's just like, she's in cloud nine. She's just out of body experience right now. She's completely checked out. We see that she says, you know what? I need to clear my head. I need to go out for a walk. And I'm just thinking to myself, please don't leave. Don't go in your car. Because if you go to your car, I already know where you're going. We see that she eventually does go in a car. So of course she picks up Eric, and I'm just sitting here myself just thinking like this woman is just, there's some screws loose in her head. Like what is her mindset right now? And we'll talk about that here in a bit. But we see she picks up Eric. They look at each other. They give each other a brief smile. We fast forward and see Eric continue to say sorry to her. She's saying that, she's scared. He's afraid. Eric comes up with this genius idea of them just running away together. Like, okay, let's make matters worse by us just going away on this another get off out of town. And we see this, she's like, is that really a good idea? And he convinces her to do it, and they say they love each other and they kiss. And again, I'm just thinking to myself at this point, okay, what's going through her head right now? Is this the same type of emotional connection that she may have had with her father? And, her saying to Eric on his birthday that you're a good man, you're a good guy, this, that, and the other. Does she see this relationship as kind of like, this man is always going to be there for me. I can rely on him, and I'll just do whatever he thinks is best. Like, I'm just wondering what's going on in the head of Claire. What is that void that she is missing, that she's getting from this kid, this 18-year-old? I'm wondering what her psyche is, and I hope that we learn that in future episodes. But as we kind of move forward, next we see them at the hotel. We see Nate eventually, he's calling Claire, and she picks up the phone, and he says, Claire, where are you at? We're worried about you. You need to just come back home tone, because right now this looks bad on you. This looks like kidnapping. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, you're saying the right things, Nate, even though I think that Nate's going to probably eventually kind of work his way into the situation and try to, make it look a little bit better for Claire. But nonetheless, she apologized and just hangs up on him. And there is definitely, like I said, there's something deeper into what Claire sees into Eric, which I hope we'll learn a little bit about in the future episodes. So as we kind of see, them in the room together, Eric says, she says, oh, was I a good teacher? I say, yeah, you were the best teacher. And she says, well, that's out of the window now because I'll no longer be a teacher. He says that she's beautiful and he can't believe and is so thankful that she chose him over the life that she had with her husband being a teacher and all that stuff. And, her entire life is gone. So as we kind of see within the scene, they have sex together. And this was very interesting here as, they're having sex. We see that, Eric's kind of looking away and she says, look at me. She says this several times in that scene. And again, I'm thinking to myself, what does that scene mean? Why is Claire saying, look at me, look at me? Is it just like, she wants to have this mental connection, this kind of emotional connection with him? Is there something missing there? Is this something that happened in the past? Again, that we talked about earlier in this video, and that someone mentioned in the comments, has she done this before? Is this something that she's like, okay, I did it once, it didn't work, but now I think this is the real deal? Is this something that we can expect from Claire in future episodes? But again, what do you all take as that scene where she's telling him to continuously to look at her as they're having this intimate moment? We see the next morning, Eric sneaks into the bathroom. We see that he has a ton of missed messages, phone call from his mom, Logan. He opens up his text messages. We see some other friends. First we see his mom saying, where are you? Are you safe? Logan and Josh saying, hey man, your mom's blowing our phone up. Are you okay? And then you start to see other messages from his friend, again, alluding to his life now is considered the guy that slept with his teacher, right? They're like, man, you're a legend. Oh man, I can't believe you did this. You're so cool. And like, I think at that moment he realizes, this isn't the life I want. This isn't the reputation I want to have. I'm not only ruining someone else's life, but I'm ruining my own life because this will always stick. Again, we talked about it in the very first episode, like my mindset. If I was, younger when I was in high school, like, oh man, if I ever hooked up with a teacher, that would be the coolest thing in the world. But the older you get, you realize like that will be not only ruining to your life, but someone else's life, especially if they're married and they have a family and all that stuff. So it is really interesting to see Eric kind of have that come in the moment where he's just like, this isn't the life I want to live. So as we kind of see, Claire finally wakes up. She notices that Eric is gone, that he's left her. And I'm thinking to myself, again, this goes back to the great acting of Kate Mirror. She's lonely. She's vulnerable. And I think in this moment, this is maybe like her thinking in the same moment when her dad was physically there, but he wasn't really there emotionally. But now in this case, Eric literally is not only there for her, not emotionally, but physically. He left her at the most vulnerable time in her life, besides her losing her mother at an early age. As we wrap up the episode, we see that Eric hugs his mom. He goes back home. We see Claire drives back by herself. They're both crying at this moment. Eric's mom, comforting him while he cries. Episode ends where we see Claire pulling up to a building. As she walks out of the car, you start to realize, okay, she's at a police building because you see a police car, a police motorcycle. She walks into the police place, and I'm to assume that she's going to turn herself in. As we get this really awesome, I got to look up this song, Half-Life plays in the background. Really interesting song. We've all talked about the soundtrack of this show. It's been pretty fantastic. But end of episode alluding to Claire turning herself in. So with that being said, what to expect next? Her turning herself in, and Eric coming into the mix saying that it was consensual, but obviously things are not going to be playing out to their advantage. I think Eric is now trying to distance himself from that relationship, knowing that he doesn't want that life. And then Claire, again, is she going to be admitting to other things she's done in her past, whether it is another relationship with another, minor, whether it's other things. I don't know. Is she going to admit to stealing lipstick in episode 1? But we will see what's to come. But again, man, let me know what you all thought about her decision to turn herself in. What can we expect Nate's role to be in the next few episodes? Will he be there to defend his sister? Will he try to find some loophole? Will he kind of convince Eric to come to his sister's side? And, she stepped up for you when you were going to go and get caught from drinking and, underage. Now it's your turn to step up for her. What's Matt going to be like now? He essentially gave her another chance by saying, I'm going to take off work. I'm going to be, getting us a therapist, give us a lawyer. Is he now going to detach himself to the situation? There's a lot to be said. And again, we can't leave Eric off the hook. What's going to happen with Eric now? Again, it was really interesting to see this episode. they were just kind of off and about, right? You know, Claire was able to be at home. You know, of course, the cops went to go visit Eric, but he was able to stay at home. So now is it going to be pressure on them? Like, no, we're not going to just let you all walk around all nilly-willy. Will we see Claire be under custody? And will we see Eric kind of being more confined and not being able to leave if this goes to a trial potentially? So really interesting episode, great acting. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into the psyche of Claire and really kind of exploring her background and her kind of upbringing to see if there are some mental things going on that the show might be alluding to with her, behavior and all that different stuff, really diving deeper into these characters. So again, let me know your thoughts, your pros, your cons, your theories for the weeks ahead. Again, like I said up top, I really appreciate you guys watching these videos every single week and having some, again, there's some interesting different takes and different sides of the fence that people lie on, but I think we can all agree that this show has been really interesting and it has sparked a lot of great conversations. So let's continue those conversations in the comments below. As always, make sure to like, share, again, comment your thoughts in the comment section, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell. That way you all don't miss any of my other reviews for this show, other shows, movies, and all the live streams that we do on this channel. As I say every single week, if you or someone you know is in a relationship like this or has any abuse, there is some information on the screen now that you all can contact for people can help. There are people that are able to help you in these situations, so definitely take advantage of it. As always, I appreciate you all support. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.